Hey guys, how's it going? Making this quick video just to update on some of the Baldur's Gate 3 news that has come out of the recent Dropped Frames podcast. I'll include a link to that podcast in the description below if you want to check it out. It included the game's director, Sven Vinke, I think Vinke, if I pronounced that right, from Larian Studios. Now, within the podcast, they talked about the release timeframe, they talked about the release build, they talked about some information on dialogue, multiclassing, etc. I'll run through all of that now. In the background, I'm just going to be playing some of the trailers. Obviously, there's no sound of that, so I can talk over it. That's just to make sure there's no spoilers in there. You guys have probably seen the trailers. I don't think there's any spoilery material in there, but just a heads up, you can always listen to it if you're worried about seeing that. All right, starting off with the news, probably everyone's waiting for the release time frame, and that time frame is 10 a.m. Pacific time. On the early access launch, they had some crashes. This time frame will allow Steam to better support them during the upload process and initial launch. They also confirmed during the stream that the game release build has been locked in. Previously, this is known as going gold, but that's more of a past term. They're still chasing some small bugs and doing playtesting. In a game this large, there are certain to be slight bugs that pop up, but it's overall complete. They also discussed preloading. It's unknown at this point in time. Sven had no real idea. The game has changed significantly from what is currently downloadable in early access, so having a current download isn't going to help you for the full release. Those of you owning the early access with it downloaded will not have a benefit to the download total. Anticipating for the game to be running on Steam Deck as well, but this hasn't been ready for launch, so it's not 100% confirmed that it will be ready at launch, but coming soon after. Alright, there was also a little bit of information on character creation. They confirmed you cannot roll for stats, which is something you do in D&D. That was cut during production. They discussed the impact on race and class selection on the story. Sven kind of indicated that some races have more of an impact than others. The example he kind of gave was that Gith Druid will have a lot of reactivity in the world. We expect that this is partially because Gith aren't a particularly familiar race to those in the world and those in Baldur's Gate, in this section of the landscape anyway, and that druids have a lot of interactions in a variety of ways. They didn't really expand on this, but it may be due to the ability to commune with animals. So you're expecting Drow, Githyanki, and Dragonborn are going to be less seen in the Baldur's Gate world. They're not unknown, but less likely to be present in the world, and therefore we'll see how NPCs have more of a reaction. The next point you guys might already be aware of, I mentioned in my beginner's guide that the character you're piloting will be the one who takes the lead in conversations. It was expanded in this stream in relation to co-op. That means a player who initiates will lead the conversation. This could mean the player who initiates conversation with a static NPC like a trader, or one who walks into a staged area first. So if you walk into what is going to be a fight, the person who walks in first and kind of triggers that will be the person who runs the dialogue. Now, important conversations, so story-based conversations, will generally drag all players in to listen, with one making the choices. Any player can listen into pretty much any conversation, spare for some few specific scenes that may occur, for example, in the camp. If you're playing co-op, you and your friends can click on the suggestion you'd like to see, but the character leading makes the final choice. So your little symbol will pop up next to the dialogue option you want to choose, but your friend leading it will make the final choice. You can't pass conversation on to someone else if you've initiated it. With some static NPCs, you may be able to duck out and let someone else initiate, but in an ambush scenario, again, as an example, you'll need to run with it. Other characters can contribute player roles in conversation, for example, through use of inspiration. Alright, continuing on the dialogue route, if you're multiclassing, you'll get the option for all your current classes. So for example, if you're a rogue and a wizard, you'll get dialogue options relating to rogue and wizard. If you're druid, fighter, bard, paladin, you'll get all of those options available to you in dialogue. So not every dialogue option will make use of those, but if you decide to multiclass into all 12 classes at level 12, you'll certainly be a jack of all trades. Something else we've known for a while but was kind of confirmed is that there is no dodge action in the game. I mean, that's the case in early access, but just something they confirmed. This is something D&D players have raised. Sven mentioned in this that mod support may bring this in the future. Obviously, that would be up to the player base and modders, although it's not going to be at full release and mod support isn't going to be available at initial release. It was also raised, I believe, by somebody on Reddit, whether there'll be a dungeon master tool. Unfortunately, this won't be in the game. I think the reason for this is that it was going to take such a massive amount of time, and Sven kind of confirmed that as well. It would have taken away from the game. And they obviously wanted to focus on crafting this story, this particular situation. Building in a DM tool would have just taken way too much time for them. If we're lucky, maybe we'll see modders implement that. But again, it's a massive undertaking in a game like this. So possibly something to look out for in the future. I'd be super keen to see somebody try and implement that. But yeah, remain to be seen. It won't be in the full game and won't be developed by Larian Studios. In talking about future content, it was also raised whether DLC would be considered. Sven indicated that the studio know the direction they're heading in next, but have not announced this. Now, it's important to note this isn't a roundabout way of saying they have eyes on DLC and haven't announced it. This could mean they have another game in the pipeline, completely unrelated. In either sense, they wouldn't want to mar the release of Baldur's Gate by also announcing something else, game-related or DLC-related. We'll have to wait and see. Based on their past history, they have added small bits to the Divinity games, for examples, but nothing approaching what I would call DLC or an expansion. My guess, and purely a guess, but based on their history, I think you're more likely to see them move on to a project, whether it's in this universe or separate, and I highly doubt we'll see a DLC or any significance for this game. What do you think, though? It's all complete guesswork. What do you reckon? In the stream, they also touched on the completionist mindset. Thinking about, can you experience everything in the game? Sven confirmed you can miss dialogue options, but heavily reinforced, and I said this in my beginner's guide, if you miss an interaction, don't consider it a missed opportunity. This is a different branch of your story, and that's perfectly okay. Don't stress when you fail a roll, that's your story. I mean, if it's the final hit on a hard boss and you've missed the clutch for the team, that might be a bit different. Sven confirmed, for example, if you're in a camp talking to two party members, the order in which you talk to them can have impacts depending on the situation. As one character may be suspicious of a conversation you have with another, and that might then change how they react to you. But that's the key, it's changed the path. The character may have been more friendly before, but is now suspicious. Don't stress over something like that, play the game, have fun, and play another round. You'll never experience it all, but you may be able to catch all the broad strokes. This is a quote from Sven. If there is something important, you will not miss it, so don't sweat the small stuff. Alright, and this is a correction for me, from my beginner's guide. Origin classes are not locked. You can chase them, they can be completely respec'd and throughout the game. However, there are two Origin characters who will have subclasses locked at the onset, but they can then be respec'd later when you meet the NPC. If you do respec an Origin character, you'll find, however, at times that their dialogue might not line up with their class. That's not to say you won't have their class-specific dialogue options, but Will, for example, will always think of himself as a warlock because it's a requirement of his story, which is obviously closely linked to that class. I was wrong about that in my beginner's guide again, like I've said. There was a lot of speculation to the lead-up, given how many storylines from the Origin characters are tied to their class. I think this will make the story a little bit, I don't know, it might make it aversion breaking. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm thinking of the Druid Halsin as an example. If he's respec, he'll still act as a Druid. So it might make the conversations a little bit odd, but I imagine you would lose the Druid options in conversation, and obviously might lose the ability to talk to animals. So he would be this man presenting as a character with an affinity for those things, but then playing as a rogue or a wizard or whatever you decide to make him. I'm kind of curious to see what that'll look like. Look, I'm always a fan for more options than less options. So let's see how it goes. All right, well, those were the main broad strokes. There were a couple of spoilery things in there that I've avoided, but nothing game changing. Again, I've put the link in the description, so feel free to check it out. They did also discuss some Twitch integration and the ability to hide bare sex. I assume just hide all sex scenes, not just that one in particular. They had a discussion on the rest system, nothing neat, nothing too significant. There will be some danger zones in the game where you can't initiate a rest, but they're very limited thanks to player feedback. There was also some discussion on Larian's culture as a developer. That was quite interesting. They discussed the mix between managing quality, time, and budget, staff passions, and some insight into how they went about building the game. Sven's views on whether you should play as a custom Origin character were also mentioned. He prefers a custom, then Origins for the replay value, but there's nothing wrong with how you want to play the game. So look, that was just a quick recap. Again, in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I really appreciate it. Hit the sub button, hit the like button, leave me a comment. Anything in here pique your interest? Were you surprised that you couldn't respec class options? I certainly was for the Origin characters, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'll see you guys on the next one and at full release.